The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Mrs. Adelson, control yourself. Count 2. We, the jury, find as follows as the count 2 of the indictment: conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Count 3. We, the jury, find as follows as the count 3 of the indictment: solicitation to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. And it is signed and dated by the foreperson. One moment. Members of the jury, the bailiff will escort you to the jury room. Mrs. Adelson, while this was not the outcome I'm sure that you desired, there will not be any further outbursts in front of the jury. If you cannot control yourself, I am going to have to determine if you will be removed from the remainder of this process. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Do you need a moment to collect yourself? Before the jurors are brought back in, we will take a brief 2-minute break. Please give her tissues if she needs them.
Where defendant reveals her plan of action, including having her Jewish grandsons baptized and offering $1 million to Dan Markel to facilitate this relocation. Control is a theme that's featured prominently throughout this email and throughout this case. There is evidence that the defendant controlled Wendy, she controlled Harvey, and she controlled Charlie, but she could not control Dan Markel. Everyone has a price. Now is the time to start. You said this divorce is not about winning and losing, and it's not a competition. You've already lost relocation according to the legal system. Well, it is about winning and losing. We're trying to get a win. You deserve it. You deserve so much more than a life without family, teaching in Tallahassee. According to her own daughter, Wendy, she's the dominant force in that household. And according to her son, Rob, she is a controlling person as opposed to the more passive, go with the flow type of personality that the dad, Harvey, has. But in this email, she suggests that dressing her Jewish grandchildren up in Hitler youth uniforms would be acceptable. That would accomplish her goals. The ends justify the means for her, people. That is illustrated here, and it sums up this entire case. The defendant wanted this done because that was the only way left to get a win. If he had submitted, if he'd let her take those kids, he'd be alive.
Verdict watch. We are officially on verdict watch as Judge Stephen Everett just dismissed the jury to the deliberating jury room after 2+ hours of defense closing and the ability for the prosecution, Georgia Capelbon, to rebut the defense's closing argument, which is always allowed. Now, we are on verdict watch. We will wait. I can't imagine something's going to come down by the end of the day. I don't really know how much more time they have today to spend together. That will probably be up to the jury as well as the judge in terms of how long they stay. But we will see. We are waiting to see what will happen. Earlier today, Donna Adelson waived her right to allow the jury to consider any lesser and included charges. Now, what that means is if they don't think that she's, say guilty of first degree, is there a lesser charge that we could consider? Now, she waived that right. That is something Casey Anthony did in her trial, and they believe that that is what got her to have an innocent verdict because there was nothing more that they could charge her with on a lesser, but they didn't feel confident convicting her of the greater charge of unaliving in her case. So that was a defense strategy for sure. So we will see what happens. I'm interested to hear what you think. The defense was longer than I anticipated. Again, they brought up a lot of pieces that the prosecution brought up throughout. It was, again, pretty long-winded. They both were long-winded today. 4+ hours of closing arguments is a lot. So I'm interested to hear what you think about how long this jury is going to take to deliver a verdict in this Donna Adelson case. Let me know what you think, and let's take predictions here. And
this is outrageous, what happened. It is truly outrageous. But what's more outrageous is, without any evidence, only motive and theory, they put her at the top of this pyramid. She's the matriarch. She's the matriarch mastermind behind Danny being killed. And they don't have evidence of that. That's what's outrageous. It's outrageous that he got killed, but it's also outrageous that we're sitting here with a jury, and you're going to hear a lot of theory, a lot of motive, and a lot of what they believe the evidence means. They don't get to decide that. The evidence is what the evidence is, and I ask you to patiently sit here and really pay attention to all of the evidence that you hear, every witness that they put on, every piece of evidence that they present to you. All of it. Don't, for 1 second, I'm not asking you to ignore any of that. Please listen to all of it closely. Look for what they actually have as evidence that Mrs. Adelson planned. She planned Danny Markel's murder. That she engaged these men to kill him. And that she gave the money to her son to give to Katie to pay them. You won't find evidence of that. The evidence about the $3,000 a month, I have that here on this board. $3,000 a month. Charlie Adelson gave $2,000 a month, and he instructed his mother, for reasons you're going to learn in the trial, out of his business account to put her on payroll. She worked for him and she paid that money. It's this man's money, not Donna Adelson's. At the end of listening to all of the evidence, we're going to have an opportunity to make closing arguments. And the judge is then going to give you, well, he's going to give it before, he's going to give you all of the instructions on what it is that you have to decide. Did the state charge and then prove that Mrs. Adelson committed a conspiracy? Not one of the elements, all of the elements, proven by evidence, not theory, not motive. For each count, then solicitation, all the elements. So while you're listening to the evidence, you don't know what those elements are, but think about what each thing it is that the state has alleged. She planned it. She got people to do it. She intended that he die. That this woman wanted to take away the father of her grandchildren for the rest of their life because of relocation that happened a year ago and was done and over. And at the end of the case, because there's not going to be evidence that she did this, keep an open mind. Listen to all of it. We're going to ask you to find her not guilty of every single count. Thank you.
Okay guys, welcome back to my social commentary. I hope you all are doing good anywhere you are watching this video. And if today is your first time of coming across our video, do well to subscribe to our channel and tell us what you think about this video in the comment section. You're welcome. In a dramatic turn of events, Donna Adelson, a 75-year-old South Florida matriarch, has been convicted on all counts in the murder for hire a pilot that led to the 2014 execution style killing of her former son-in-law, in particular Dan Markel. The jury deliberated for just over 3 hours before returning guilty verdict for first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation for murder.
Welcome back to part 7 of day 3 of the Adelson Matriarch murder trial. If you're wondering why the hell there's 7 parts, oh, there's going to be more than 7 parts because the trial yesterday was over 9 hours. Now, Donna Adelson is currently facing multiple charges, including murder, because, well, they're stating she hired a hitman to take the life of her former son-in-law, Dan Markel. Now, her son, Charlie Adelson, was found guilty for his role in Dan Markel's death. I believe in 2023, he's sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. His ex-girlfriend was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole because apparently she was the middle person that got the hitman. Who were the hitman? Her baby daddy and his friend. Now, prior to Dan Markel's death, he was already divorced from Wendy, but they were going through a horrible custody battle, and Donna was insisting that Wendy move back to Miami. They were living in Tallahassee because he was an FSU law professor, and she was also, I believe, an associate professor. And well, Dan said, absolutely not. We have 50-50 custody. We're not moving my kids to Miami to be with your family. Also, he had filed a motion that was pending at the time of his death against Donna Adelson, stating that she was trying to alienate him from his children. The children were stating that she was constantly saying that their dad was stupid, that she hated him, and that he was trying to keep the kids from her. And also, he, is Jewish, and he only ate kosher. And guess who didn't give a crap even though she was Jewish? Donna. She'd pick up them children and get them a little bit of McDonald's, get them a cheeseburger with fries, not caring at all that was against his religious beliefs. Now we're back with the financial forensic investigator that was going all over the bank records of the hitmen, including Charlie as well as Katie. So they talk about Katie in the fact that her bank records were showing that she was getting deposited every 2 weeks a check from the Adelson Institute. You see there, the dad is a dentist and the son was a periodontist. They had multiple locations. So at this point, they're like, she was an employee. Not one person could state that she was an employee. They asked multiple people at the front desk. No one had ever seen her working there a day in her life. However, after Dan Markel's death, she was getting checks. Specifically, she got 44 checks deposited. So she was getting paid every 2 weeks from the Adelson Institute. And who was managing payroll? She was. And who was signing checks? She was. Now, prior to Dan Markel's death, she actually worked at the front desk of a dermatologist's office. However, they stated that less than 3 months after the murder, she started receiving those checks deposited. The last one was in May of 2016. They asked her, did she receive, or they asked her, did she receive any checks from any other company between the time of the murder and when she received checks from the Adelson Institute dental practice? No. Was it a financially successful practice? Yes. And Charlie, in fact, in 2012 became the manager, and then in 2015, it changed to both Charlie and Harvey. I find that interesting. Makes me wonder if he was concerned because he owned the business, Charlie did, and maybe he was concerned that if he was the sole owner, anything happened, because we know he started getting anxious. He was not sleeping at night after Katie was arrested. I wonder if he did that, so if anything happened, they couldn't, essentially take the business or the accounts. So they had both of them listed as the owners / managers. Additionally, Donna was always the signing authority for the Adelson Institute. In fact, she was the only one with the ability to move money without having someone else approve it. They asked her, was there evidence from Charlie Adelson's iCloud in reference to how she began receiving income? And they responded, yes. She was saying that she needed to show employment to get not only health insurance for a kid, but an apartment that she wanted to rent. So it was about 3 to 4 weeks before the murder of Dan Markel. So in the text, she tells Charlie, baby, I'm going to need help on the employment info I have to send to DCF for my kids' insurance. So later on, she ends up moving elsewhere. And at that point, he was like, no problem. Okay. And again, she is the signing authority. So his mom was a signing authority and he was the manager. The dad was also a dentist there. They asked him, at the time of this, that year was Charlie Adelson's only form of income, the dentistry. And he said yes. Now, he had other income as a periodontist. So what that means is that he would make, or he would receive income from other dental practices. So while they owned multiple practices, because he was a periodontist, he would contract his services out and he would go to other dental practices and do specialized work for them. He was extremely successful as a periodontist. And what kills me is the fact that y'all could have been on an island drinking some margaritas. These kids are now almost adults, and look at y'all in jail. Now they start talking about what else does Donna do for Charlie. So they stated when you reviewed the phone records, did she manage more than just the money at Adelson Institute? And he said yes. She would actually book his travel as far as his plane trips, his hotels. Whenever he wanted to take a trip, he would just reach out to his mama. In fact, she would also have to remind him regularly to pay his bills on time, to transfer money to his accounts. She helped him with all of his finances. She essentially ran his life to the point where she kept up with day-to-day details on his particular needs. Now, mind you, this was back in 2014, and Katie, who ain't doing nothing, okay, because there was no proof she ever worked at the dental office, was getting paid $2,379 every 2 weeks. And they specifically stated it was exactly the same. It was always at a end of pay period. So it shows that, everybody was kind of getting paid at the exact same time as she was, like if she was an employee. Now, during the investigation, they ended up subpoenaing the Adelson Institute's records in respect to Catherine's employment. And they stated that it was a QuickBooks summary. And in the summary, they asked them, what did it come with? Like, did it come with W-2s, tax filing records, performance evaluations, anything at all? Nope. A job description, nothing. So it just shows that they were paying her essentially, but nothing to state why they were paying her, what her job description was. Furthermore, there was no W-2s involved, so there was no taxes or anything being filed. Now, it states that it appears that once she got that FBI bump, she stopped paying Katie McWanamwa. Again, I cannot say her last name. And then they also asked her, the entire year prior to Dan Markel's death, what was the most amount of money that she deposited in that entire year was $13,000. However, after Dan Markel died, she had deposits it came up to over $50,000 in deposit. They then start talking about Wendy Adelson's purchase of her home. You see, Wendy stated that she was going to buy a home in Tallahassee in March. So keep in mind, Dan was murdered in July. And that all of a sudden she pulled out of it because she didn't have the money to purchase the home because he wouldn't give her the settlement in the divorce. So they pulled that up and they stated that she had signed a contract about a week before Halloween of 2013. The purchase price of the home was $371,000. And they asked her, okay, did she have the money to provide the down payment? He goes, yes. Would have it been a real financial stretch for her to do that? Absolutely not. She could do it comfortably for sure. Keep in mind that they're extremely well off, the entire family, in addition to Dan. So the fact that she stated that she didn't buy the home a couple months before his death because she didn't have the money was actually false. They then go over the fact that any of the Adelson family members had the money to pay for the hitman. So Garcia, Katie, and Rivera, which was about $140,000, any of them could have taken it out of their bank accounts to pay her. Another thing was the text messages between Donna and Charlie. She would, text him out of a sudden, hey, I need $25,000 from your office checkbook and to put it in Dad's office checkbook in order to break even this month. Can we do that? Do you have enough money in your office account? I will then move $25,000 in cash in the safe into your cash pile in your safe. So it seemed like they not only liked to move cash around and keep cash at hand, but also proving that he had plenty of money in his safe stapled to be able to pay for the hitman.
This prosecution presented a compelling case, arguing that Adelson orchestrated the murder to eliminate a custody obstacle after her daughter. When the Adelson was denied permission to relocate with her children, the defense contended that Donna was merely a meddling mother-in-law, not a mastermind. Yo guys, thank you for watching our video. We really appreciate it. And if today is your first time coming across our channel, do well to subscribe to our channel and tell us what you think about this video in the comment section.